I believe that the compensation package could use some adjustments. However, as we look at all the cities along the front, Highland's percentage is 16.9% of the total budget. Cedar Hills is 13.2%. As I have compared the salaries that are paid to those employees, they are well within line. Now, you can look at those and ask, are they above what they would be in private business? The answer is perhaps. But the point is that as we have shaved the salaries of the employees over the past 2 or 3 years, there have been no increases. The last increase was a 60-cent COLA increase that was done year before, as I recall. I believe that we ask a great deal of the employees of Highland City. I believe that they respond. I think that we can certainly take a look at some of the benefits and try and reduce the costs of those benefits, but I am of the opinion that they are not hired help, that they are the face of Highland, and as such, they should be compensated, and should be compensated fairly. If you ask me what I would like to do, I would like to take a look at the compensation, make a fair assessment of that compensation to include the benefits, and go from there.
I think we have good employees in the city. We all appreciate the work that they do for us. However, the private sector hasn't not only not received increases in their pay, but they've watched their benefit packages cut in half. I have a lot of my family that works in the public sector and those that work in the private sector. And the fairness there, if you're comparing what's happening in the private sector to what's happening in the public sector, there's a big deficiency in what's happening in people's salaries and their benefits outside of public service. And that needs to be looked at every year. I was never a big fan of we just make increases every year because it's a good thing to do. And people should be compensated well for the work they're expected to take care of. And if they're not doing their job, they need to be coached to do their job better. And they also need to deal with the fact that you are their employer, not the city as the government, but you, the citizens who pay the bill, are their employer. And you deserve to have the kind of service that should be rendered to you whenever they approach you to help you with a problem, or sometimes do those difficult things like turn off services and all those other that are charged to their duties as well. But it's an ongoing process. We just need to look at it every year and say what's appropriate, and comparing it to another community, we can't say that they have equal responsibilities to another community. That's not a very good barometer of what we should be paying our people. I think we pay them well, and we expect a good service from them, and that's the fairest thing that we can do with respect to that. I do appreciate your work. I have family members that are part of that staff, and sometimes they need a little discipline too. Thank you.
Currently, the resident, the Highland employees receive a benefit package equal to 45% of their wages. That's almost identical to the Alpine employees, and we generally think of Alpine as a very fiscally sound city and run well. If you look at the budget, and this number's a little bit different than Larry's, but if you look at the overall budget, just subtracting public safety, we pay out 23% of our budget in the form of wages and benefits. 6.8% of that budget goes to benefits, about $730,000. The benefit package at 45% is rich compared to private sector, but you need to remember as well that something you probably don't know is that the city employees are exempt from Social Security, and the city therefore does not have to pay the Social Security tax that a business would pay to the federal government. That's 6%. So they take that 6% and put it into their 401k, and we consider that part of their wage and benefit package. But if you're going to compare private sector, it really should be 39%, not 45%. Still significant compared to what normal people get, but you have to take wage and benefits and put them together. Now, compared to employees, public employees versus private employees, Pew did a survey of all the states. In Utah, public employees make 18% on average more than private employees. That's for all employees in general. It's not a side-by-side comparison for a particular job. But it does give pause, and it says, you know what, we do need to compare private and public for the same types of jobs. So my opinion is that we should do a comparison and then make a decision when we have the information. There's one more thing I'd like to talk about, but ask me afterwards, all right?
Concerns that I have as we look at the city versus the private sector, it's very difficult to do an apples-to-apples comparison of compensation, particularly when you look across the spectrum of the skill set within a city versus the skill sets required for various positions outside of city employment. One of my concerns is that it's very important that we have an ongoing process to evaluate compensation at each skill set level so that we make sure that we're competitive based on skill sets, so that we make sure that we have an engineer that's compensated comparably with what he would be paid for in the private sector. To do that requires significant due diligence, but I think that's something that the city needs to plan on doing and incorporate into their compensation evaluation so that we make sure that we are being fair. Fairness is extremely important in terms of the quality of the employees that we're able to attract to Highland. It's very important that we have quality staff so that we can be effective in running the city as well as we possibly can. As we drop below a competitive level, we're going to start losing employees, which we have in some cases already. And so I'm concerned that we make sure that we maintain our compensation competitively so that we can hire experienced employees that will be effective in running the city so that we can all benefit from that as residents. Thank you very much.
I appreciate some of the comments that have been made so far. First of all, I'd like to say it's great to have some businessmen on the council or people that are involved with business. Tim Irwin's a successful businessman, and we have some good people to help us. I tend to agree with that. It's kind of hard to compare a city government that provides service with a corporation that produces a product for profit. And so I think you have to kind of stop and think about that. And so which private company do we compare it to? Do we compare it to an IT company that gives everybody stock options? There's examples in this valley, many examples in fact, where those companies then go public and these employees become millionaires. So that's never going to happen to a city worker, I promise you. I agree with Ed, we need to be competitive in the market. Now, I've looked quite a bit at retirement benefits, and our retirement benefits, because we do not pay Social Security, we were giving 6.2 in profit sharing and another 4% matching. This is a little higher than some of the other cities. We proposed recently and passed a resolution that we're going to decrease that by 4% for all new employees, but we're keeping it the same for our grandfathered employees who've been here for years, if not decades. I think we need to treat them fairly. We lost our city manager that we had for 2.5 years, who was excellent, because we failed to give him an appropriate raise and increase. He went to Conwood Heights a half year ago and is paid $26,000 more now. So if we're going to be competitive, we have to have similar benefits to our neighboring cities. And if we do that, we have to be fair to the employees. So I echo what Rod and Ed have said. I think we need to look at the compensation package. We need to make it fair. We need to make it as less we can for the taxpayers.
I think we have a great city staff. From what I know, I've met a few of them. I think they are very competent. And if it weren't for the fact that we're in such a tight financial spot, I'd be fine with keeping their compensation right where it is. I think it's pretty good. In fact, if the city had an opening for a rocket engineer, I'd apply. It's better than the compensation we get where I'm at. But in tight circumstances, we do need to assess can we afford current level salaries? And I think a study needs to be done and assess, is there any room to trim back a little bit based on the situation we are with other priorities like roads?